The Mecklenburg County election debates are a service of WTVI, Mecklenburg County, and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The views and opinions expressed in these debates are those of the candidates and do not necessarily represent the views of WTVI, its management, Mecklenburg County, or the League of Women Voters.
PBS Charlotte and the League of Women Voters present Election Debate 2016.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with PBS Charlotte. So glad you could join us for the 2016 general election debate sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. During the next 20 minutes, you'll hear from the two candidates in the NC House of Representatives District 92 race. Questions for today's debate were prepared by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The candidates were not given the questions in advance. Candidates, I'll call on you in random order. You will have 30 seconds to respond. If you would like to challenge an opponent, raise your yellow challenge card and we'll give you 30 seconds to respond. Each candidate will have 3 challenges during the debate and you will be allowed, to make a 30-second closing statement. Now I'd like to introduce the two candidates for NC House of Representatives District 92, Democrat Chaz Beasley and Republican Beth Danae Caulfield. Again, we're very glad to have you both with us. The first question is, does the legislature have any role to play in diffusing situations like the recent protest and racial tension in Charlotte? Why or why not? Chaz Beasley, we begin with you first.
Well, thank you again, Jeff, for having me, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this debate. In North Carolina, we have a time for choosing, as Reagan said. And one of the things that we have to choose now is, are we going to actually make a decision that will encourage us to grow as a community and work together? Or are we going to choose to allow the things that divide us to be stronger? I believe we're going to do the things that allow us to become stronger. And one of the things that we must do is fight for the things that matter and fight for the things that our community calls on us to do. I believe that we can do what it takes to unify.
Thank you, Chaz. Danae Caulfield, your response.
As to the question, does the state have a responsibility to get involved with the issues that recently happened? My answer to that is very simple. They do. They are in charge of keeping civil obedience, and they're also in charge of the National Guard, and that is one of their primary responsibilities, is to keep public safety. So my answer to that is yes.
Our second question is, where do you stand on House Bill 972 enacted by the legislature to prohibit release of body cam videos without a court order? Beth Caulfield, we begin with you.
Well, that I believe went into effect on October 1st, the new law, and I believe that we should have transparency in our law enforcement. I think that when we don't have transparency, that it causes people to question things that they don't need to question. And so I'm very supportive of having the body cam on police officers, and I'm also supportive of those body cam videos being released so that the public can take a look at them.
Thank you. Again, the question is, where do you stand on House Bill 972 enacted by the legislature to prohibit release of body cam videos without a court order? Chaz Beasley, your response.
One of the things that we have to remember when it comes to transparency is that sunshine is the best disinfectant. Right now, we have a situation where there is a little bit of mutual distrust within our community, and it's something that we have to tackle head on. When it comes to the body cam issue in particular, many times having that information out there not only helps the community know what happened, but it also helps the officers to know that what they are doing is being recorded and that they can respond accordingly. I think it's important that we remember just how crucial it is that we have the trust that's required between the community and between our law enforcement.
All right, and we have a little bit of a follow-up question to that. Do you believe police should be required to turn cameras on when responding to a call? Chaz, we'll go back to you for your response.
I think that that's the best move, and it's not only the right move for the officers, but it's also the right move for the folks who are involved in the stop or in the situation itself. Oftentimes when it comes to these kinds of situations, we see that people wonder if they are being responded to in an appropriate way, and this can help lay that question to rest. I'm a big believer in making sure that we have as much transparency as we possibly can and that we do it in the most responsible way, and I think that that measure is a common sense step in the right direction.
Thank you. Danae Caulfield, your response.
I believe that we should. Could you repeat the question?
Do you believe police should be required to turn cameras on when responding to a call?
Thank you. I do. I do believe they should turn it on, and I believe it's not just for the protection of the citizens, but it's also for their protection. A lot of things happen nowadays, and people jump to conclusions. And if they have the camera on, then it takes all the doubt out. And so it protects the police officers who are put in danger on a daily basis, and it also helps citizens understand what took place in that situation, so there's no cloud of doubt. I definitely support it.
Thank you. Even though the North Carolina Constitution gives the legislature the power to overrule local ordinances, are they abusing that power with recent actions like House Bill 2? Please explain your response. Again, a 30-second response. Chaz Beasley, back to you.
On issues like HB 2, we have a clear choice among our leaders. Do we want people who are going to make decisions based on political expediency, or are we going to make decisions based on what is best for our state? I believe that we should make the decisions that are best for our state. I think that we need leaders who are willing to stand on principle and who are willing to say if something is the wrong decision for our state. I believe that HB 2 was not properly decided. I think that we should allow our cities and towns, whether they be Democratic or Republican, to make sure that they create the decisions that are best for their people. As said by Jefferson, the government that is closest to the people is the government that is most effective, and I believe in this case that's the appropriate response.
Thank you. Danae, Caulfield, your response.
I believe that we are either going to be a state and a nation that abides by our laws, or we're not. And so in the Constitution of North Carolina, in Article 7, Section 1, the power is held with the state then passes it down to cities and ordinances. And I encourage people that in the audience to look up something online called a home rule state. North Carolina is not considered a home rule state. And what that means is cities and towns do not have broad sweeping authority to make these types of ordinances. So the city of Charlotte is the one who made the first mistake by passing this instead of going to the legislature, which is what they should have done. If there was issues, they could have sat down with them and they could have said, let's find solutions together. And that's the step that our leaders need to take. They need to follow the law.
Thank you. The next question is, would you support an independent commission redistricting legislative and congressional districts? Why or why not? Beth, Danae, Caulfield, your response?
I would. I think there's so many things going on right now that cause division in our state, and one of them goes along, first of all, parties. You have Republicans and Democrats fighting when the communities are hurting, and really what they would just want is people that will fight for them. And so this is another item that causes division because people don't trust that the lines were drawn properly or fairly, and it's the way the Constitution was set up. It's not different for any other party. It happens under Democrat and Republicans. Every 10 years, the lines are redrawn. But I think it would be more fair, and I think people would trust it more if we had an independent commission that was truly independent.
Chaz Beasley.
In gerrymandering, politicians pick their voters instead of voters picking their politicians. I think that's wrong whether Democrats do it or Republicans do it. We need independent redistricting because not only will that allow our voters to have more of a voice, but it'll also allow our seats to be more competitive. We're in a competitive seat here in District 92, and I believe that competition has made me a better candidate. I also believe that when it comes to the market, we understand that competition makes things better. Why can't we apply those same free market principles to our politics? We have to take we have to have level-headed and common sense solutions, and an independent redistricting commission is one of them.
The next question is, citizens demand tax cuts, but also demand better education, healthcare, roads, technology improvement, etc. How do you balance these conflicting demands? Chaz Beasley, we go to you for your response.
So 50 years ago, President Kennedy said, I don't believe in big government, but I believe in effective governmental action. That has to be the approach that we take in our state today. We have to make sure that in our state, that if you call 911, that help will be on the way, or that when you send your kids to school, they'll have the resources that they need. I don't think that the way to make sure that they have those resources is to raise taxes on the middle class. And I also don't think that we need to have people who are making short-sighted decisions for long-term implications. We need people who are going to focus on what works. That's what made North Carolina the great state that it is.
Danae Caulfield.
Here's one of the major differences between myself and Mr. Beasley is that I've served as a town commissioner, I've served as an elected official, and I know it's easy as a citizen to sit outside and say, I won't raise taxes, I'm going to cut spending, but when you're actually sit down with a budget and you have to decide what the spending is that you're going to cut, it's difficult because everything that you cut is going to affect somebody. When I was on the town board, one of the things that we wrestled with cutting was our garbage. And we went from once a week on our recyclables to every other week. I got more emails on that than any other issue. So it's easy to say we're going to do it, but I held fast as a town commissioner. I did not raise taxes, and we cut the spending that we needed while growing our town. And I believe very strongly in holding our taxes because people out there need help, and we are here as a leader to help those people in our community.
Thank you. The next question is, do you favor the establishment of a dedicated state funding source for the North Carolina Housing Trust Fund? Beth, back to you.
Repeat that question.
Do you favor the establishment of a dedicated state funding source for the North Carolina Housing Trust Fund?
I do. I was just looking at some of our, where we've gone in the trust fund, that we went to a major deficit, and we have actually brought that up, and we've put that into the green. I think that's very, very good policy for our state. Anytime that we can go into a positive, into the green, is definitely better for our state.
Chaz Beasley, your response?
I grew up in poverty here in North Carolina, and I understand just how important it is to have quality and safe housing. We have a lot of people here in North Carolina that don't have that. We have a lot of people here in Mecklenburg County that don't have that. We need to make sure that every single person has a safe place to call home. And if that means that we need to do more to make sure that we have the funding necessary to do that, then I support it. I think we have to remember that when we're making decisions about people and everyday lives, and that we can't forget just why we're going into office. We're going to make positive change, and I hope to be that change agent in Raleigh.
All right, thank you. Our next question is, does it make sense not to expand Medicaid when NC, North Carolina, loses federal dollars, health insurance coverage for more people, and more jobs in the health industry? Chaz Beasley, back to you.
When it comes to Medicaid expansion, we have to remember one thing. There are people right now who are working hard and providing for their families that can't afford to go to the doctor or can't afford basic health services. I'm a big believer that we're made of mind, body, and spirit, and that when it comes to health insurance, we take care of mind and body. I believe that we should expand Medicaid. We already have paid for it. We're not going to get a rebate in our taxes because we haven't expanded it. I think this was a political decision out of folks in Raleigh, and that we need to make a decision that actually helps people, that actually encourages people to have the best lives that they can live. I support Medicaid expansion. I'm proud to do so.
Thank you. Danae, Caulfield, your response?
Thank you. I've looked at this issue, and I've tried to look at it from both sides, because it's not an easy answer, I don't believe. My son is one of those ones that falls in that category that he's not covered because he doesn't make enough money, but because we didn't do the Medicaid expansion. So it hits home to me, but we can't always make decisions based primarily on emotion. So when I looked at this, I looked at our federal government right now has about a $20 trillion debt. And even the Obama administration has said the Medicaid expansion is not sustainable. So in the first few years, they're going to pay 100%. After that, it's going to be 90%. And so what do those costs mean? And do those costs stay fixed from the federal government? And those are answers that we don't know. I am for Medicaid reform, and I would support looking at all options.
All right, thank you. And we have a challenge from Chaz.
With all due respect to Ms. Caulfield, it is an answer that we do know. Wake Forest University has already done a study to tell us how much it would actually cost our economy to expand to have Medicaid expansion, not just in the first few years where it is 100% covered, but in the out years where it's covered 90%. And they say that the net cost is zero. And we get 300 to 500,000 more North Carolinians to be able to take care of their health. I think that's important. We have to make decisions based on digging into the issues and knowing our facts so that we can make the best decisions for the people of District 92 and for the state.
Thank you. Would you reinstate the North Carolina refundable earned income tax credit to give working families a tax break and thus a boost to the local economy? Why or why not? Beth, we begin with you.
I do support the earned income credit. I believe that low-income families need help. And so I am definitely in support of instating the earned income credit, expanding it. Our job is to help people. And if we can do that for low-income families, families that have children that need extra help, I think that that's our job as a leader.
Thank you. Chaz?
For those of you at home, let's explain how the earned income tax credit works. What happens is you work, and then the government provides you with an added incentive for you to work even more. That incentivizes people to actually provide for their families directly. It was something that used to have conservatives and folks in the middle and liberals all on the same page that we need to protect it. I think that it's one of those times where taking politics out of the equation is so very important. Doing something that works, doing something that used to have a consensus is the kind of things that we need to do in North Carolina. It's the kinds of things that we used to do, and it's the kinds of things that we can get back to doing.
Thank you. What kind of state plan is needed to ensure water quality and supply in the long term, considering recent coal ash spills, droughts, flooding, conflicting regulations, etc.? Chaz, back to you.
We need to make sure that we have a robust testing regime here in North Carolina. It affects the everyday lives of people who are right now drinking bottled water, living without the ability to take showers and do basic things that we take for granted. We need to make sure that in North Carolina, every single family and every single child has access to clean water. We have to make sure that we don't have the same problems that are going on right now in Flint, Michigan that come home here to North Carolina. And so I do believe that we need to do everything that we can to ensure water safety. And I think that a robust testing regime is the best way, and having everyone at the table to create solutions is the way that we get to the right path.
Thank you. Danae, Caulfield.
Well, because of what happened at the Dan River and the quality of the water that was affected there for the residents surrounding it, North Carolina implemented one of the strictest regulations in the country, which I am very happy to see. I actually am endorsed by Representative Chuck McGrady. He was the former president of the Sierra Club. I happen to be one of the Republicans that believes this way. God gave us the earth, and he gave it to us as a special gift. If we don't protect it, we will one day have to answer to him for this precious gift that he gave us. So I'm very supportive of protecting our water, protecting our air, protecting our environment. And I was happy to see that they put scientists on this job, not politicians, to go look at the coal ash ponds, to see what could be done. I'm happy to see they're doing something. I most likely would have went even further than what they did already.
Thank you. The next question is, what is your position on the sale of military-style weapons? We're talking about high-capacity long guns to civilians. How do you think continued sales and ownership of such weapons will impact the levels of violence and deaths in our country? So what safeguards or legislation can you suggest? And Beth, we go back to you.
Well, I'm a big proponent of the Second Amendment. I believe that our forefathers created that, not just for us to carry a gun to hunt, but also to protect ourselves. I think that when we look at these atrocities that are happening in our schools and around the nation, that the problem isn't always about the gun, but it's about the heart and the condition of the person. How do we change the heart of a person? And that's much more difficult than just changing a law. A lot of weapons that are used in these atrocities are not legal guns. And so I would like to see us enforce the laws that we have on the books instead of just being so lax about the ones that we have.
Thank you. Chaz Beasley, your response?
I grew up here in rural North Carolina, and my family owned guns. I'm a gun owner myself. I learned at an early age what gun safety was, and I learned how important it is. I think that we need to make sure that the politicians can get on the same page as the public on this one. Right now, a majority of Democrats, a majority of unaffiliated voters, and a majority of Republicans here in North Carolina believe that universal background checks are a smart thing to do. In fact, the supporters of universal background checks count among them former President George W. Bush. This is an issue where there is consensus. This is an issue where we have to get politics out of the way and be willing to do something that increases the safety of our families and our children.
Thank you. The last question we have, and we just simply want a sentence response, or actually just the name response rather. Who are you supporting for president? Chaz Beasley, we begin with you.
I'm supporting Hillary Clinton for president.
Beth Danae Caulfield?
Well, I was supporting Carly Fiorina because she was a smart businesswoman, but she got out, and so we're left with two choices. And so I will be voting for Donald Trump because I like the fact that he's a businessman.
Thank you. And now it's time for the closing statements. I want to remind the candidates you have 30 seconds to respond. And Chaz, we will begin with you.
So in District 92, the people have a real clear choice. They have a choice between whether or not they want someone who is going to make sure that they speak up and speak out on your issues, regardless of what may be the political backstories and implications, or that we can choose to go in the wrong direction, that we can choose to go in the direction of the state that was not created the way that it should be. I'm a big believer that we will be able to have a fresh voice in the General Assembly. I hope to be that voice. I hope to speak up for you, and I hope to speak out for you, because I believe that we can do the best things that we can do for our state, and that our best days still lie ahead. Thank you, and I hope to have your vote this November.
Thank you. Beth Danae Caulfield.
Well, I don't believe that when two people run against each other, they have to be enemies. And I've said that from the very beginning. Chaz and I just bring different things to the table. And I believe there's a time in someone's life that You have to step up to the plate because you believe what your experience has brought you to are the best for your state at this time. And my serving in the military, it taught me about teamwork. It also taught me about courage to stand up in the midst of a very hard time when you felt like things were going wrong. That was not an easy thing to do. My real estate broker experience has given me the ability to learn to negotiate between two sides to find positive outcomes. And I believe that's what we need in our state. Someone who's not going to cheerlead for their party, but someone who's going to cheerlead for you. And that's what I plan on doing when I go to Raleigh. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, thanks to Democrat Chaz Beasley and Republican Beth Danae Caulfield, who are the two candidates running in the North Carolina House of Representatives District 92 race. Thanks again for taking part. For more information about the League of Women Voters, go to their website. It's goleaguego.org. For more information about the candidates, we encourage you to go to vote411.org. Want to remind you the general election is Tuesday, November the 8th. Election day polls will be open from 6:30 a.m. that morning until 7:30. Early voting begins this week. On behalf of WTVI PBS Charlotte, I'm Jeff Rivenbark, and thanks for joining us for this debate.